The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. It's time for NBA free agency. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I'm good. The rumor mill is hot. We are T-minus 24 hours away from the official start of free agency. Of course, NBA free agency is not what it once was under this new CBA. We know that. But that's not going to stop us from having an excuse to get a little bit stupid. And I'm excited to get a little bit stupid with you on this podcast today, Mike, as we talk about some of the options in front of the Suns.
Free agency begins Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully those of you who are listening to this Sunday night or Monday morning. So you have time to hear us preview free agency before it happens. The Suns are currently actually over the second apron still. So they don't have any cap space at all, and they're just staring down the barrel of minimum contracts, which if free agency this year is anything like it was in last year, I think that it will likely be a slow roll on the types of contracts that we see signed specifically for minimum contracts. No one wants to be on one, so they're going to make sure there's no other options first, unless they already know there's no other options. And if those are the types of guys we're signing, we'll see what ends up happening. There is a little bit of Suns news. The Suns picked up Nick Richards, his option for his final year. Does not guarantee that Nick Richards will be on the Suns. Picking up his option also gives the Suns the opportunity to trade Nick Richards. So that did happen. Any thoughts on Nick Richards, that option being picked up by the Suns?
I mean, look, if he ends up playing a little bit for the Suns, and this is more of a conversation of maybe a trade happening in February, that's also fine with me because Mark Williams is an injury risk. Kaman Malawach is a rookie. Like, there might just be room for Nick Richards to play. But also, if they were going to trade him tomorrow for a couple of second-round picks, wouldn't mind that either, you know? So I think it was the right move in any case to pick his option up.
There's also been a lot of conversation about Bradley Beal. I think this is kind of a good place to just quickly talk about Bradley Beal. In previewing free agency on Zach Lowe's podcast, one of the main characters, if you will, that he brought up was Bradley Beal and the concept of Bradley Beal being traded. Everyone sort of has pitched around their version of Damian Lillard for Bradley Beal, something we've talked about in the past, not overly exciting, doesn't save the Suns any money, but it does get rid of Bradley Beal and his no-trade clause, so there is a value to that if the Suns find a way under the second apron in a different way, and then, of course, Damian Lillard could potentially play in the following season, not this coming season.
Also gets rid of Bradley Beal without incurring the cost of, if they were to waive him tomorrow or agree to a buyout tomorrow and then waive and stretch, and then you're paying $16 or $20 million or whatever over the next 5 years. Yes. You would be able to get away with not doing that if you just swapped him with Damian Lillard, whose contract expires a year earlier.
And I'm very glad you brought that up because I think this is an important thing to talk about with Bradley Beal. If he does get bought out, it'll probably be, dare I say tonight, we're recording this on Sunday night, or tomorrow morning, because if Bradley Beal plans on being waived and stretched, it means he has to give up money. There's a rule, for those who don't know, you're not allowed to have more than 15% of your salary cap in dead money. The Suns will have more than that if he accepts his entire contract as a waive and stretch option. So in order for it to be legal under the CBA, he has to give up a large amount of money. And in order to give up a large amount of money to allow him to be a free agent, he has to be a free agent with some sort of deal in place for him to make up some of that money over the next few seasons. So if Bradley Beal is not traded, which I think the Suns obviously want to trade him to a destination that he wants to go to, then it will probably, any sort of waive and stretch option will probably happen over the next, 16 hours or so. We're recording this at about 7 p.m. on Sunday night, so it would happen soon.
And there's a real cap, too, in terms of the amount of money that Brad can make on his next contract, not just related to, who he is now and how good he is, but you're seeing a lot, like Shams has been tweeting all day about guys coming to agreements on extensions, and I think a lot of those numbers feel more reasonable than people were expecting. But the reason so many of those numbers are reasonable is because agents are just looking at the environment right now that they have to deal with. And the Brooklyn Nets have a lot of cap space. I think they have over $20 million of cap space, so they can go out and chase a big fish should they wish. Pretty much everyone else in the league is just, even the under cap, under tax teams are dealing with the full mid-level exception, which I think is now $14 million per year. That's what they have to give a guy. And then you have the tax teams, which have the tax mid-level exception, which I think is like $6 million. And then you have a couple of second apron teams, which includes the Suns, who can give veteran minimums worth $2 or $3 million. But that's basically all that's out there. There are not going to be unrestricted free agents signing deals this year for $30+ million. It's just not going to happen. And so if you're Brad, maybe you accept a buyout and then you're stretched over the next 5 years. But in terms of what you can sign right now to another team, I don't know. He's probably looking at one of those MLE deals, right? Like some team would offer him like 3 years, $40 million or something like that is about all he could get.
Yeah, and the MLE is more than that, but I just doubt he would get more than that. He kind of has to prove it after this last season for any team to really buy in on him, taking a significant amount of their cap. Maybe there's some version of a deal that's not fully guaranteed for him that he can try to play himself into, that gives him the opportunity to play where he wants to play, or, make back some of that money. The report was from Fred Katz, who did say that there are teams that Bradley Beal would waive his no trade clause to go to if there was a deal in place, but he also likes Phoenix and would be fine staying in Phoenix. So it sounds like the type of thing that we're looking at right now. There is a situation where he doesn't accept a buyout either because there's no deal that helps him make up any of that money, and he just continues to be on the Suns. But I anticipate if anything is for sure going to happen before the season starts, it would likely be soon. Are we going to mention just the idea of trading him for LeBron James?
Of course we are.
We have to allow us to dream, allow us to we know it's not realistic. There's a yearly tradition in the NBA where LeBron James threatens whatever team he's on to build a contender around him. And that's currently happening right now. LeBron James essentially has a player option. He opted into that player option, which of course it's like $50+ million, and then immediately released a statement through his agent saying, the Lakers are building for the future and I want them to build for now, or I want to play for a team that's building for now to try to win right now. And look, that happened, and the first thing I thought was, Bradley Beal, congratulations. You probably would be fine playing in LA with the Los Angeles Lakers, and we would be fine sending you over there. And listen, they can now trade whoever they want for a center, and they could have Bradley Beal next to Luka Doncic. And there's two players in the NBA that have a no-trade clause. Those two players are Bradley Beal and LeBron James. So, it's easy to envision a world where LeBron James says, I want to be traded. The only team I'm going to accept it is if you trade me for Bradley Beal in Phoenix. And Bradley Beal says the same thing, and both teams get something out of it. Bradley Beal being a player who maybe would contribute better on a team that he doesn't have a bunch of people playing the same position. Just a thought, right? I mean, it's impossible not to envision it. Of course. And LeBron has, he's proven everything he has to in LA. He won the chip. They're always going to love him for that in 2020. So yeah, I mean, if people are allowing us to dream for a minute, I would say anything could happen. I have two questions for you about this. One. Yeah. Because from LeBron's perspective, obviously, if LeBron theoretically could actually come to the Suns in some sort of Bradley Beal swap. Okay. Is he closer to winning a championship? It's a great question. Is he closer to winning a championship than he is on the current Lakers, who, of course, he has Luka, and Luka is better than anyone we have, yes, including Devin Booker. I mean, you just have to admit it. But besides that, they have Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves is good. They don't have a center still. Did they draft any centers? Did they? No, right? So they don't have any centers. Yeah. Did Dorian Finney-Smith just... Opted out?
today too.
He's a free agent.
Yeah, so they're in a bit of a pickle in terms of their roster building.
I think they'll probably re-sign Dorian Finney-Smith because I can't imagine the Nets as the only team that has a ton of.
You're probably right, but also Dorian Finney-Smith, he had like a $15 million player option. He had something good.
He should probably, he'll probably get a lot of money.
Yeah, that's weird. Is LeBron closer if he hops to the Suns? Would he be closer to a championship?
Obviously, the Suns would sign Chris Paul. We'll talk more about him later if LeBron James comes here. So let's envision it right now. It would be Devin Booker, Jalen Green, LeBron James, Dylan Brooks, and Mark Williams is the starting five. Off the bench, you have, of course, Ryan Dunn, potentially Chris Paul. We're just factoring in Chris Paul if LeBron James comes here.
Yeah,
I know they're
Chris
old.
would be here. Can I also?
I know they're old. Okay.
Can I suggest something a little bit different? Jalen Green to the bench. I don't care.
I know.
Here's the thing. First of all, I think
Jalen
Green's best role in the future in the NBA might honestly be as a six-man microwave scorer.
Jordan Clarkson.
Also, because Jalen Green is on like a 5-year deal, if you want to put him, and you just traded for him, if you want to put him on the bench, he can't say shit. He can't threaten, I won't sign an extension. It's like, you're on a contract. I'm making you the sixth man, play basketball. But why I think it would actually make them better. Why I think it would actually
trying to compete.
So if they want to compete, I would do Booker, Dylan Brooks, Ryan. Wait, hold on. Yes, I would do Booker, Brooks, Ryan Dunn, LeBron, Mark Williams, Jalen Green.
So no Chris Paul in the starting lineup either.
No, Chris Paul.
Interesting.
Can be as part of the second unit with Jalen Green and Malawach and Fleming.
Okay, so can I add just to this conspiracy theory a little bit? Today, we saw a video that was released online of, what's his name? The Clutch agent, Rich Paul, on the phone with Matt Ishbia, basically orchestrating Kaman Malawach falling to the Phoenix Suns at 10. Now, the Suns have multiple Clutch clients that they added to the roster this offseason. 3, in fact, that they added this offseason in Dylan Brooks, Kaman Malawach, and Rasheer Fleming. And they also have Osu Ighodaro, who's represented by Clutch as well. That's 4 players that were added, and 3 of them in this exact offseason. It's just interesting that he forced a client basically to the Suns at 10. I don't know how much control he had over that, but based on the phone conversation, he sounded pretty confident that he had a lot of control over it. So, at the very least, it's interesting to look at and to hear. And also, Jordan Ott was an assistant coach in LA with Darvin Ham. So Jordan Ott, by all, expectations, has some sort of previous relationship with LeBron James. I would just expect that. Not to say that any of this is going to happen, but this is why my mind runs wild. Now, one thing I will caveat all of this with is that every year I envision a scenario where LeBron James comes and plays for the Phoenix Suns. I've done it for years. And I like to picture it. It's fun to think about. The Suns currently don't have a point guard. He's one of the best at it, if not the best in the NBA at being a point guard. And, he's a tall one. Of course, we understand who LeBron is now. He's not who he used to be. He's not the defender he used to be. In fact, on the Lakers, they actually were better when he was off the court. But we're talking about for Bradley Beal.
That relates to my second question, which I didn't get a chance to ask. Is 40-year-old LeBron James an upgrade over 36-year-old Kevin Durant?
You're trying to get me in trouble now.
No,
you want people to attack me.
No, I'm just asking questions. We're just having a nice philosophical debate.
Probably not.
I think the answer is yes.
Honest.
Don't snicker. Why is he not? Why is he not?
Okay, in the context of the Phoenix Suns,
this is the most sensational
is a better fit.
Conversation our podcast has ever had. Is who's on your Mount Rushmore? 40-year-old LeBron James or 36-year-old Kevin Durant? I want LeBron taking the last shot. I legitimately think this. I legitimately think that LeBron at his age is still an upgrade over what KD was for the Suns last year.
I think you're probably wrong in a vacuum, but in the context of the Phoenix Suns, with what they need, he's a better fit offensively. Defensively, Kevin Durant's still better. Like LeBron James struggles on defense right now. I factor in the lack of running back in transition. LeBron James doesn't do that much either, but he also turns it over less. So there's less transition opportunities for them. I love LeBron. I think he would be fun on the Suns. I think that there's a world where the Suns have essentially infused this roster with a bunch of young talent, but they still have Devin Booker. And if they made a trade for Bradley Beal for LeBron, which is not going to happen, don't get me wrong, it would still be fun to watch them now, and they could compete at least a little bit. I don't know how good they would be overall, and still have a future that has young players. Now, the trade only makes sense. You have to add Bronny too, of course, which is, I assume, why the Suns picked up Nick Richards' option, so they could trade him for Bronny, and they'd have a center, I should say, and then we'd have a son.
They'd have a son as well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A dad playing with his son on the team called the Suns. I'm just saying, like, it all works. Also, I should mention, Bryce James is committed to University of Arizona and will be playing in Tucson this upcoming season.
I've heard
LeBron
he's really
James'
bad.
Son. He'll be here, though. They'll live close. That's all I'm saying. And if Chris Paul's here, they can share a private jet to L.A.
People said what they said about Bronny, that he's not an NBA player, and yeah, that's true. Bryce James is worse. He's got a long way to go, a really, really long way to go. But yeah, we can probably put this dream to rest and talk about, the actual things that are going to happen for the Suns in the next few days.
Yeah. Alchemy Roast is my favorite coffee. You've heard me talk about it time and time again, but it's time for you to go to alchemyroaster.com and try Alchemy Roast's coffee. Alchemy Roast is about more than just coffee. It's about passion, dedication, and community. They're a small batch roastery committed to sourcing the finest beans and mastering the art of the roast, and they do it ethically. It really is my favorite coffee, and I know those of you who listen all the time know I love coffee. You can get 10% off your order using the code TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com. That's the code TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com. Go on there, check out all their coffee. It's small batch coffee, so it's up to you to try as much of it as you can. They're only available for limited times, so go to alchemyroaster.com, check out what they have, make it as pour over, make it as espresso, make it in a drip machine. I've done it all. It all tastes great. All of it is good. Tanzanian beans right now. They have some on their Peaberry coffee. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of other great coffee, but if you try that one, you know that I recommend it. It's really good. Once again, Alchemy Roast, go to alchemyroaster.com. Use the promo code TIMELINE. Get 10% off. It also supports us here on the podcast, which we appreciate if you do.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's talk about free agency just as a whole. First of all, let's do a little bit about free agency outside of the Suns real quick, and then let's talk about how the Suns should approach it, because we do this every year. We talk about free agency, and I like to think about the whole picture, if you will. So I just brought up a random hoops hype listicle of the top free agents in the NBA in this in this current offseason. So you want to guess who's number one on this list?
Top free, is it unrestricted and restricted guys?
Yes.
I really don't know who's top. Who's number one?
Miles Turner.
Oh, he's unrestricted? No option or anything?
No, he's not. Yeah, he's
interesting.
And he's awesome. Like he's awesome. The Suns have no avenue to get him. I guess there's a sign and trade world where they can find a way to sign and trade something to Indiana, but I can't imagine they'd be open to that. Although they have a really interesting season upcoming with Halliburton not playing, so who knows what they would be willing to do. But Miles Turner, number 1. Number 2, Josh Giddey, who is expected to re-sign with the Chicago Bulls at about $30 million a year in this upcoming year. They're going to sign him. They traded, Alex Caruso for him, so I think this is something that they're definitely going to do. Number 3, Jonathan Kuminga. So you could see, I mean, even with Josh Giddey, it starts dropping down pretty
It's
dramatically.
not exactly the 2010 free agent class of LeBron and Bosch go to the Heat and Amari Stoudemire goes to the Knicks and, whatever else happened that summer. Yeah, we're gone are the days of old.
And, Jonathan Kuminga is a restricted free agent, but very publicly said that he wants to be someone who takes more shots and said whether that be on the Warriors or not. And look, Steve Kerr doesn't play him. So I anticipate that Jonathan Kuminga will be on a different team other than the Warriors. And we'll see where that is. There's some Miami Heat buzz, apparently. The Suns did apparently almost trade for Jonathan Kuminga. If you'll remember, at the trade deadline, the offer that was supposedly and reported to be on the table for the Phoenix Suns at the trade deadline for Kevin Durant going to the Warriors would have netted them both Jonathan Kuminga and Jimmy Butler, adding some wings to the Suns. So I think the Suns like him, but that's all we really, really know.
Is it
and
fair?
Then it gets Number 4, Malik Beasley, which we don't have to talk about him.
Malik Beasley is, right now especially, but he's number 4. That's, wow, this class is bad.
Yeah.
Is it fair to just say Jonathan Kuminga, that's just 6'8" Jalen Green? That's just power forward Jalen Green. That's what he is. I mean, Jalen Green is better because Jalen Green actually was the leading scorer on a playoff team and Kuminga averaged 15 points a game. But in theory of who they are and how they play, those are similar archetypes for sure.
I don't deny that.
Both guys have been in the league for 4 years. Both guys were drafted super, super high. Both guys can play up tempo and are athletic and are exciting, but the
not super efficient, not super smart.
Exactly. The raw talent is more than the sum of their parts as players to this point. And so that's where I would draw the similarities.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bad sign when Steve Kerr doesn't play you, but it's just it gets a little going through this list. It's Malik Beasley, Santi Aldama.
Oh, Santi Aldama is actually good.
I like him a lot.
Like
I'm curious how much money he'll make. If he's going to get a full MLE contract or at least the tax-paying mid-level. I'm guessing you get the whole thing if he gets the tax-paying one, which is, I don't know what it is this year. It's usually $7 to $8 million. And then you got Brook Lopez, Ty Jerome, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's probably going to get paid pretty well.
Poor Ty Jerome.
That's the top 10. Karis LeVert ends there. Ty Jerome's still going to make money, man. I know he was bad
but he had
in the playoffs, but he's going to make money.
Yeah, but he had a crazy year, and I don't know. I think there was a world where Ty Jerome was going to sign some sort of contract of 20 plus per year if there were actually teams with cap space out there, but nobody has cap space. Unless the Nets want to make Ty Jerome rich, but they also just drafted 5 playmakers, so I don't see why they would do that.
Yeah. And then from there, it doesn't take long to get to anyone who'd be considered a minimum contract guy. There are still guys I think that will get paid, but Clint Capella, how much is Clint Capella going to make at this point of his career with the middle class of the NBA fully disappearing? Mo Wagner, I'm not sure how much he's going to make. Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, will still get paid. There's no way you turn down $14 million or whatever his, $14.9 million is what it was supposed to be. There's no way you turn that down without, his agent, Michael Tellem. Is he related to Matty Tellem?
He
must be.
Would they both be sons of Art Tellem?
Would they be brothers? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
nepotism? Are we going to start a Dorian Finney-Smith campaign here?
Look, maybe someone else just has the last name Tellem. I don't know. I haven't looked into it.
Seems unlikely.
We'll have to research that. But
yeah, and just getting down to 17, that's where Tyus Jones shows up on the list. So there's just an example of what the free agent class looks like for the league. Is there anyone that you see as a good fit anywhere that you would like them to be? Because for me, it's none of these players are exciting enough to even envision on other teams other than, I don't know, I'm curious what Jonathan Kuminga would look like on the Heat if he was allowed to shoot. Would it just go really, really badly or what?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I'm sure there are going to be some unforeseen ones of guys going to playoff teams that we just don't think about, and we end up saying, oh, that's actually a really good fit, or he got great value there. For the Suns, none of the names you talked about so far are guys I expect to be really anywhere close to the veteran minimum. So we have to talk about an entirely different tier. I mean, for the Suns, like Santi Aldama or someone like that would be so awesome for the Suns, but he's just not going to be there for $3 million. Let's get real.
Yeah. So for the Suns, what are their needs? First of all, they have a lot of centers. 4 currently rostered. 5, if you count Fleming, who can also play center at this point. So they don't need that. They also have, 5, 6 shooting guards. 5 really if you don't count Dylan Brooks. So they don't need that. They have a couple of forwards just in general. Of course, you have Ryan Dunn, Dylan Brooks, Rasheer Fleming are on the team right now. And they really don't have any point guards. So I think if you look at this team, what they need to fill out their roster and likely what they're looking at, and it could be trades, by the way. It isn't necessarily just through free agency, but I do think things will start heating up trade and free agency-wise tomorrow. But I think the likelihood is that they're going to be looking at point guards and forwards. Is that what your whole list is?
Yeah, I mean, if you just list out the depth chart for the Suns right now, the number of guys they have, Devin Booker and Jalen Green and Grayson and Royce and all the way down to Kobe Brea, who we're not even anticipating on a full roster spot. We're anticipating him probably more likely being a 2-way contract, right? There aren't that many slots open for the Suns. So yeah, they could fill their slots entirely through trades and not even have to sign any free agents at all. I think what's more likely to happen is maybe they sign 2 guys. And also Colin Gillespie. They did tender a qualifying offer to Colin Gillespie, so it does appear to be a priority for them to bring him back. That would be at least 1 point guard. But beyond that, yeah, I'm just looking at other point guards and power forwards and 2 signings. That's it for this team, I think.
Yeah. So Colin Gillespie, we're factoring him in. You would definitely sign him back on the roster, right?
100%. Yeah. Yes. Colin Gillespie was awesome last year. I think he has the capability to, if you went into the season. For me, there's not that much pressure on the Suns next year. Yes, we want to compete in Devin Booker's timeline. But also, I think most of us are just realistic about what the window is and kind of understanding that they're not actually going to be a contender next year. So I think you could even go into next year with Colin Gillespie, not as your 3rd string point guard, but as your backup point guard. And I think there's a real solid chance that he could kick ass in that role. He was really impressive in the final 2 months of last season.
The man's an NBA player, and he's, essentially athletically reaching his prime right now. He's not young in comparison to most guys who are fighting their way onto a team. I think he deserves a contract. He worked really hard to get one for the Suns, and I anticipate that the Suns will have him back on the roster unless somebody swoops him and offers him a lot of money. But as we talked about, the fact that there are no free agencies or no free agents really that are available is related to the fact that most teams have already used all their cap space. So this just isn't a lot of money available for someone like Colin Gillespie. He will likely be signed on a minimum contract, and that's what the Suns have to offer him. And I expect him to be back in this coming year, and I'm excited for him to be back on the Suns. So the rest of this then, point guards and forwards. Where do you want to start?
I have a list of an equal number of names. Not that many. I didn't jot down that many names here because again, these are just
There's
veteran.
Just not
minimums.
a lot of great players, to be frank.
Yeah, I have 3 or 4 guys at both of these positions. Let's start.
Let's start with Chris Paul.
Let's just
have the Chris Paul conversation.
We'll just do the point guards first.
Chris Paul's a free agent. 1, 2. He wants to live closer to L.A. or in L.A.
That gives him 3 options. Maybe
it gives
4.
him a few options. Sacramento.
I don't think he's going to Sacramento. I'll just say. So I
don't think he's going to Utah either, even though it's a short flight too. But that's Phoenix or the 2 LA teams are the most likely scenario here. He doesn't seem to be returning to San Antonio, and the Suns are sort of desperate for a player just like Chris Paul. For leadership, the 2 bigs that we have on the team are not creators. They need people to create shots for them. Chris Paul is still really, really good at that. He played every game last year. Did you know this?
Game. Yes, I knew it. How the heck did Chris Paul play 82 games last year for the Spurs? I'm looking at it right now. I was tempted to say it's the first time he did it in his career, but that's actually not true. He played 82 games for the Clippers his age 29 season in 2014-15. So the second time in Chris Paul's career, but still only the second time in his 20-year career that he plays 82 games, and he does it as a 39-year-old for the Spurs. That and starting every one of those games too, by the way. That's remarkable.
So we are talking about a player who will be the second oldest player in the NBA next year, but I would venture to guess that both of us are excited by this idea. I am.
100%. Yeah, he brings leadership. He still passes the hell out of the rock, still maintains the same assist-turnover ratio. By the way, he shot 38% from deep last year on a lot of attempts. Like, compared to... this is just, his athleticism leaving him and kind of understanding he's in a different place in his career now. But compared to who Chris was when he was on the Suns, his past 2 years with the Warriors and the Spurs, he's now in a place where, like, 60% of his attempts are threes. He's basically either getting a layup or he's taking the three. There's still the occasional mid-range in there, snake the pick and roll, go to the nail, whatever. But he's in a different stage of his career, and he knows that. And he doesn't need to start either. You could bring him in. He could be a 20-minute per game backup who's just there to kind of like be the steadying presence that we all know he is. I think it would be a fun reunion for everyone. And I think he can legitimately still help a basketball team. Like, you can have your whole conversation about, Chris Paul can't play defense in the playoffs. How would you hide him? And it's like, let's get to the playoffs first, okay? The Suns have a long way to go to even get to the playoffs. If they're even in a position next year where they're winning 42 games and they're in the play-in, that's a success based on what they were last year. So I think Chris could have a tremendous impact on them yet again. And I would look forward to seeing him earn those hard-earned legacy points of yet again joining a mediocre team and dragging them beyond their expectations for the millionth time.
There's also the case that he brings back good vibes. Him and Devin Booker appear to be very close still, so I appreciate that, and I would appreciate some vibes from those old teams back. He's not quite the same, and I think one argument you could make against Chris Paul, play style wise, is that he's slow and methodical. Now, it's true. He is slow and methodical. And, sometimes Devin Booker is, and I think maybe even to the Suns' detriment at times. I think they need to play faster, and I think they need to play smarter. And the more teams that or the more players that they have on the team that are fast and athletic, which they have sort of loaded up on so far this offseason and hopefully continue to add more players like that, the faster they need to play to maximize those players because they're going to be uber effective in transition. And they talked about it. Jordan Ott talked about it in his press conference. Efficiency goes down the later you shoot in the shot clock. The earlier you shoot in the shot clock, the more efficient you are as a team. Now, having said that, Chris Paul played on the San Antonio Spurs last season. The San Antonio Spurs were 13th overall in pace last season, over 100 in the pace stat. When he played, yes, they were technically at their, close to their slowest when he played on that team. But even when he played, they would have ranked, if they played at the speed that he played at the entire time, they would have ranked 10th in the NBA in pace.
That's a really good stat. I'm glad you pulled that because I didn't know what it was.
He played a little bit faster last year than he did previously, and maybe sort of recognizing what he can do. He also played off the ball a little bit more, which I don't know if he plays a backup point guard role for the Suns. I don't know that he needs to play off the ball constantly, but he can play off the ball. We know his catch and shoot.
Well, you would think
capable of that.
Think about the players who he would be paired with if he was actually coming off the bench for the Suns. He's going to be playing a lot of minutes with, Grayson Allen and Rasheer Fleming and Kaman Malawach, like guys who he's going to have to set up. So I think you could, in that role, just entrust Chris to be who Chris has been for 20 years. If he has to start primetime games next to Devin Booker and whoever else, Dylan Brooks and whoever else, then it might be a bit of a different story. Also last year, I just want to throw out the stat. The Spurs were, this is from Cleaning the Glass, 9 points per 100 possessions better with Chris Paul on the floor last year.
Of course.
92nd percentile in the NBA.
Are you prepared for people getting really mad at us for posting how good the Suns are when Chris Paul's on the floor compared to Jalen Green?
I'm 100% prepared, dude. I'm 100% prepared for Chris to come in and lead the Suns to a better record than what Kevin Durant just did last year. Are you kidding me? Like, that sounds like an incredible. That's an incredible narrative.
It's not a high bar to jump over, but I think they can do that.
That's an incredible narrative for me to seize and have a lot of fun with.
Another thing I will say, first-time head coach, having a guy like Chris Paul in the locker room is really valuable. If you get him on the same page as you just have another coach that's on the floor. It's really, really valuable. I think it was really helpful for Monty Williams, and we saw the results of Monty Williams not having Chris Paul in Detroit. Afterwards, that roster was still a mess, don't get me wrong, and they got a lot better by adding talent, but it didn't go well.
That reminds me, so much has been happening, and it's been really hard to track. Have we heard about any other assistant coaches besides DeMarre Carroll?
No. Yeah.
I feel like
there was a rumor for Steven Silas, a former head coach of the Houston Rockets, who did not do well, but is an effective assistant coach, I think.
Yeah, those must be coming soon. I wouldn't be surprised if, honestly, there were a lot of verbal agreements at least, and it's just been we've been busy with the draft and free agency that no one's reported it. But yeah, Chris Paul is out there. Hey, how about this guy? The anti-Chris Paul, but almost just as old. Yep. Russell Westbrook?
Of course, he's on my list too.
Where do you want to start with Russ? I mean, the power forward conversation when we get there in a way is more interesting to me because it's less like what new thing can you say about Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul compared to like what we've all known about. Everyone knows what those guys look like, what they play like. The Nuggets tried to rein in Russ and tame the untamable beast last year. I think to like moderate success. Sometimes it worked. But Russ mostly just is what he is. And how do you feel about Russell Westbrook's game in 2025?
Is it bad that I'm kind of excited by that as a proposition?
I mean, he's got that dog in him, right? So
he plays hard all the time and he plays really fast.
If that's what you're looking for.
He plays hard and he plays fast. I don't know. Like, is he good? No. Does he always make the team better around him? Not necessarily. He can't really shoot. Sometimes he takes shots thinking he can. The highlights and the lowlights are equally as mystifying sometimes. But he plays hard and he plays fast. And, the Suns need more players like that. Like, if you think of him as just a minimum contract player, I'll ask you this. Is Russell Westbrook better than Cam Payne?
Cam Payne's on my list too, but yes, Russ is better than Cam Payne.
Is he, though? Are you sure?
Yes.
Because they kind of play the same role now.
No, Russ is still, I don't have the stats exactly in front of me, but I would be really surprised if Cam's usage percentage was anywhere close to Russ. Russ dominates the ball when he's on the floor. Even if he's playing with Jokic, he finds a way to touch that damn ball because he's Russell Westbrook. And he would do the same thing.
Yeah.
He would do the same thing on the Suns. And you could make the argument that, again, if this is just a backup role, no one's talking about bringing him in to start, that the Suns, kind of given the number of guys they just drafted who are just not used to having the ball in their hands, who are purely play finishers, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for them to have a guy like Russ playing 20 minutes a game who's just super comfortable with the ball in his hands. And yeah, as you were saying, the Nuggets signed Russ last year. They instantly went from 27th in pace as a team 2 years ago to 8th last year. Did it make them a better team overall? I don't really know. I think that's, I would argue no. They were just kind of different. But they were doing the best that they could, and you're always going to get rim pressure from Russ. And I'll just tell you one thing. Like, the combination of Jalen Green's mid-range game and Russell Westbrook's mid-range game on the same team, that would really test me. That would really, really test me. But otherwise, they'd be fun. They would be fast. Russ shot 28% last year on mid-range shots. I just saw that stat today.
Yeah, it's really bad. And
it's like that's literally
not there either.
That's literally I mean, but at least the three, he shoots 30%, but if it goes in, it's worth 3. He shoots 28% on mid-range shots. That's like a turnover. Like, if you're taking that shot, that might as well be a turnover.
23.8 usage percentage last year, according to Basketball Reference, the lowest of his career by a pretty good amount, over 2% from the previous year. Cam Payne on the next 20.8. So not that different usage-wise. And Cam Payne, a better shooter, still plays really fast and also still plays really hard. Now, Russell Westbrook, there's value in that, but I think Russell Westbrook is the kind of guy where, honestly, if the rest of these guys get picked up by other teams, then you look at Russ. That's kind of where I'm at with Russ. And then, for me at least, that includes Cam Payne. I would prefer Cameron Payne, who is a free agent and will likely sign for a minimum, and probably, honestly, will probably stay in New York. I think I think he played a role there. He mattered. He has some of the same problems as Russ, but honestly, still a much more efficient scorer overall.
Yeah, he got trimmed out of the playoff rotation eventually because it was just like he really wasn't
minimum contract guy.
Yeah, he wasn't doing much in the playoffs. But Cam, I think, is very much still a regular season innings eater. You can trust Cam to play 15 to 20 minutes and stay relatively healthy. And he'd be another good vibes guy. Remember how awesome Cam Payne was for the vibes of the Suns, him dancing on the sideline with Mikal Bridges? As long as it's coming from a place of competition where the level of competitive spirit is consistently high, then, yeah, Cam would be fun. I think Russ is a better player, though. I think I'm sticking to that.
I don't think we have to break down who Cameron Payne is. I think people understand he's not that different than he used to be currently. He is getting older, though, so.
Sure. I only have one other guy on my point guard list. I'm curious how many others you have.
I have two others.
Ben Simmons.
No. For real?
Yeah, he's not on your list?
Okay. No, I have two other guys that are
you have to
Ben
at
Simmons.
least you have to at least consider it, right? You're talking about building a team that is big and long and can defend, and you're not going to at least consider Ben Simmons for a minimum contract?
Well, I'll say this. I have Markelle Fultz on my list.
Okay,
so
okay, yeah, that's kind of the
I'm
same.
not saying that I would completely poo-poo the idea of a point guard who can't shoot or is afraid to shoot. Sell me.
But I don't know if I can sell you. He averaged 8 points per 36 last year. That's kind of who he's been since Brooklyn. He's not a guy who's going to be looking for his own shot. We gave up on that dream of Ben Simmons back in 2021, 5 years now. But he rebounds. I mean, we're talking about how important.
Okay, he's a forward, really, but he plays point guard, right? Which is nice because it fills both the roles that we need. Okay,
exactly. He's a forward who plays point guard. Does not really turn the ball over. 9 assists to 3 turnovers per 36. 1.5 offensive rebounds per game.
Good.
Gets steals. Get blocks. The 3-point shooting would have to come from somewhere else.
You'd have to surround him by shooting. Which, to be frank,
there's something to it.
If he plays with Fleming at center, that's kind of fun. Okay, I could see it. A minimum contract,
switch everything, defense.
Yeah, and then occasionally he'll have a game where he's really freaking good, and then that would be fun.
I want to see what his season high in scoring even was this year because it was probably 12 points.
Okay, do you think whose season high in scoring was higher between Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons? Who do you think?
How many games did Markelle Fultz even play?
I'll bring up his stats right now as you bring up Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons' season high in scoring for Brooklyn this year because he was traded halfway through to the Clippers. Was 15 points.
15 points, okay.
In 29 minutes.
Let's see. Yeah, Markelle Fultz was 8 points. So
yeah,
I can't get too mad at your suggestion here. And I'm not overly excited about Markelle Fultz overall, to be honest. It's just the one thing I'll say about him is that he's still pretty young, and he's just the idea of signing a guy who's still pretty young. And actually, I think he's a pretty good overall defender for what he does on the floor. I think that he's capable. I'm not sure if it's something he's going to have. He only played 21 games last year, so didn't exactly play a lot of games. But I put him on the list just because I thought it was someone that, because he tries hard defensively and he's only 26 years old, I think there's a chance the Suns just look at him as a guy who probably won't play, but they give an opportunity to see if there's something there. In his previous year, his high was 18 points when he played with Orlando. So just throwing that out there.
Who's the
last guy? Dennis Schroeder.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of a perpetual, I feel like Suns fans have brought up the idea of Dennis Schroeder for 10 years now.
He's basically Cam Payne, but he's probably better, but less fun. Because he's kind of always annoyed with his team. There's a reason he's been on a bunch of teams.
Dennis Schroeder has played for, I don't even know if I can count this. Hold on. He has played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the past 5 years.
I see. You're already talking me out of this idea, so maybe you'll just strike this.
He went LA, Boston, Houston, LA again, Toronto, Brooklyn, Golden State, Detroit. That's since 2020.
Yeah. So this is a player I think that would be, of all the guys that we're talking about, has the most scoring juice, which if you're trying to find someone that could occasionally give you 20 points off the bench, against a big who can't keep up with him. It's Dennis Schroeder. Like he can pass well too, but he's more of a guy who's going to try to get to the rim and score at the rim kind of player. And at times has done well doing that. At times has struggled, and overall, like I said, seems to be kind of an unhappy player. So not exactly vibesy the way Cameron Payne or Chris Paul would be, but maybe a better player than them. I don't know. Not Chris Paul. Probably.
One thing I will say about Schroeder is he does. I agree with you that he does give me unhappy vibes as the career NBA journeyman he is now. But on the other hand, kind of a big moment riser. He had a good playoff series this year for Detroit. Detroit was the third team that he wound up on, and they lost in 6, the Knicks in round 1. He had a 20-point game in game 2. He put up good numbers in that
and he's
series.
Good in the German games too. Like
that's the other thing I was going to
player.
say. He's in the Patty Mills school of FIBA All-Stars of how are these guys so good when you put them in FIBA competition, and then you look in the NBA and they're only kind of okay, where you have to squint to see it. Dennis Schroeder is one of those guys. But yeah, really good in the playoffs this year. He shot 48% from 3 in that series against the Knicks. Yeah. I don't know. I'd say he's definitely better than Campaign. Probably better than Ben Simmons too. But it's I don't
Chris
know.
Paul that we want.
I think
Chris Paul.
I think I'd take him below Chris. I think I'd go Chris Paul, Russ, Schroeder, Campaign, Simmons. I don't know. They're all so close.
I would go Chris Paul, then Campaign.
you
Look,
just want
am I
good
emotional?
vibes. You just want the good vibes.
I'm a little
back.
emotional, okay? And then I probably would go Dennis Schroeder and then Russ, honestly, and then Markelle Fultz, who I just put on there because I thought it was an interesting name.
I think the power forwards low-key are more fun because it's
Let's
less.
Talk about them.
It's less based
I have a very
on,
short list, and I think there's a chance none of them sign for minimum contracts because it was hard for me to get excited about any of them.
I've got only 3 guys, and I think there's also a chance that none of these guys sign for minimum contracts, but I think if you can get any of them, they're good. I prioritized, I'll just say, these are 3 different players. How many do you have, by the way?
I have 3, yeah.
Okay. My 3 guys, what they all share in common, all of them had a positive on-off differential last year, so they all tangibly made their teams better. I looked for that specifically, and all of them shoot threes. Now, outside of that, they have different skills, but I did try and find that stuff.
Who's your number 1?
I don't know if I have a number 1.
I do.
Yabusele, maybe?
It's Yabusele,
yeah. Yabusele, we talked about last year. We're talking about FIBA All-Stars here. The guy who posterized LeBron at the Olympics last year. We have to at least
He's so
consider.
fun, man. He's so fun. And I don't know if he's a minimum. I really don't know. But
I don't know either.
I think he probably is. You know?
What I'll say about Yabusele, so, for those who don't remember, Yabusele kind of started his career with Boston for a couple years, couldn't hack it, went overseas for several years, is a French forward, massive dude, 6'8", 260 pounds, but like a 4-5 hybrid, kind of similar to Rasheer Fleming, except even bigger, I think you could say. And came back to Philly, was really motivated, obviously, to return to the NBA after he had a great performance for Team France in the Olympics because of the fact that he only took a minimum contract last year. And that was probably about the same amount of money that he could have made, if he not even less, in Europe. But he just really wanted to be back in the NBA. And so that's why I think he's just going to take whoever's offering him the most money. I don't think he's super concerned with ring chasing or anything like that because he's never really had a real payday in his career. And so if someone's offering $6, $7, $8 million a year, he might prefer that. But he averaged 11 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists a game, shot 38% from deep. Mm-hmm. Also had
4 attempts per game too.
38% from
on
deep.
27 minutes, so 4 attempts is a good rate.
71% at the rim too is something I identified. Yabusele's not like a lob catching big, but he is a guy who can finish around the rim, has a ton of strength, which enables him to play the 5. Just in kind of a more below the rim kind of way. And also comfortable with the ball in his hands. Had a good assist to turnover ratio, 2.8 assists to 1.7 turnovers per 36. So he can kind of do it all, I would say. That's a really good option for the Suns if you could get him.
Defensively, because of his size, he's effective just being huge, but I think when he plays forward, he's not going to be the best forward defensively. Let's just say it that way. But we're talking about minimum contract guys here, we're not going to find someone that fills every gap. I think for him, he's going to be effective offensively, and I think he will be effective defensively against the right kinds of teams. And for a minimum contract, if he's signing for that, it'd be kind of a home run minimum contract. He'll be 30 next season. So, he's older too. It would be his 4th season in the NBA. Like you said, he started here, left, and then came back. And he's a fun guy to root for. So I think he's number 1 on my list.
Yeah, a guy who can absolutely, it's kind of interesting with him actually, because again, he's short for a 5, even though he's so strong. So if you play him at the 5, you're probably losing the rebounding battle. But if you play him at the 4, he can rebound well. Like, that's where he can grab more offensive rebounds, more defensive rebounds than you'd expect from someone at that position. Also, I mentioned all of these guys that I'm going to bring up, positive on-off differentials last year for Yabusele. That was 6 points per 100 possessions better when he was on the floor for the Sixers, 88th percentile. So, yeah, good guy, good skill set.
I'm going to guess who a second player on your list is, somebody we've talked about before, Taurean Prince.
Taurean Prince is not on my list, actually, but
okay.
Give me your Taurean Prince case.
It's exactly the same as the last 2 years that I gave you a Taurean Prince case, I think.
Taurean Prince is exactly the type of guy, by the way, who's just caught in the meat grinder of the new CBA. Like, just has to change cities year after year, signing new $2 million deals because he can't get an MLE deal anymore because the middle class is dead. Like, when we talk about who should be the most angry at CJ McCollum, it's a player like Taurean Prince, I think.
Yeah. 8.2 points per game last year with Milwaukee in 27 minutes. Shoots really well. Last year he shot 44% from the 3-point line, but in his career 38%. So last year was obviously like an up year for him, but over his career has shot really well. Basically, offensively, you're going to stick him in the corner. Probably not going to do much more than that. But like an effective overall guy at being 6'8" and shooting 40% from the corner. And, for the Suns, they don't have a lot of guys at his size. He's listed at 6'6". I don't think he really is 6'6". On it. Basketball Reference is what they have here. He definitely feels taller than that, plays taller than that, and has relatively long wingspan. Clearly plays forward, 3-4. Pretty simple sell for him, right?
Yeah,
he's
definitely
a 3-and-D guy.
Definitely a 3-4, 3-and-D guy. Yeah, his rebounding numbers are poor for his height, and so that's where I'd question him a little bit, and just say, yeah, he's clearly smaller than a guy like Yabusele who's playing up all the way to the 5. But yeah, he can shoot the cover off the ball. So if that's what we're prioritizing, then yeah, I couldn't possibly be mad at Taurean Prince for a minimum. My number 2 is also a 3-4, but a guy who I landed on as being, I just like him a little bit better than Taurean Prince, and that's Jake LaRavia, who I think has killed the Suns in the past. I might be wrong about that, but he played for Memphis. Do you happen to remember this, or am I making this up?
No, I think he did. I think you're right. I can look it up while you talk.
Okay, I'm not sure, but Jake LaRavia, 6'8", 235 pounds, white guy, shoots the ball, but what I like about him is, a lot of times with these white forwards who shoot threes, you kind of pigeonhole them into a certain stereotype, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if you're actually listening because you're looking up a stat.
No, I am.
I would just point out, like, LaRavia is not like Doug McDermott, right? He has athleticism. He has vertical pop. You can see him run the floor well with good speed and finish off lobs. And it's not like the main part of his game by any means, but I think he's a guy who his primary skill is 3-point shooting. He shot a career-high 42% from deep this year on mostly pick and pop, above the break threes. But at the same time, he's a guy who could fit into an up-tempo system. And I think that would be just a really good thing for us to have. The other things I like about LaRavia's game, 4.2 assists to 2.3 turnovers per 36, so he can play that connecting role, take the ball in his hands as a secondary playmaker a little bit more often. And also, again, like not like a super strong lockdown defender or anything, but really good anticipatory skills. He averaged 4.9 deflections per 100 possessions. That was 91st percentile. A guy who gets a lot of steals. So I think he could definitely play both the 3 and 4, and just give you some good defensive playmaking. Any thoughts on Jake LaRavia?
Is he restricted?
Is he restricted? No, I'm pretty sure he's unrestricted.
Okay. It's just probably based on where he was drafted. Maybe.
Let me double check.
Yeah.
I'll double check for you right now because that would be embarrassing if I.
No, I mean even still, like I don't think he's. How much is he going to make? Like, I don't know. If this just depends on if the team wants to keep him. I think there's a world where he signs for a minimum contract wherever he wants, even if he is restricted. I just know he's only played in the NBA for 5.
3 years.
5 seasons.
Three seasons. 3 seasons. Yeah. So he's only been in the NBA for 3 seasons, but I'm actually not sure why this. Oh, I know why it is. He's only been in the NBA for 3 seasons. He was a first-round pick, but his 4th-year option got declined, and because of that, he's an unrestricted free agent. So that's what it is. So what I think actually happened is LaRavia last year, his second season in Memphis, he was a third stringer who played 35 games, 23 minutes a game when he did play, but wasn't like a primary guy in the rotation. And so, you have to make the 4th-year you have to decide to pick up the 4th-year option at the end of year 2, right? There's a year-long buffer. And that's when Memphis declined it. Then he goes into year 3. He ends up actually playing much better and being a bigger part of Memphis's rotation as a second-string guy instead of the third string. But the 4th-year option had already been declined, so he was still going to go to free agency.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it. I looked up his games against the Suns. He didn't have any good games against the Suns. He played 16 minutes and scored 3 points.
Okay, I must be thinking of someone else. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it's an interesting player where I could see him being pretty good. He went to Wake Forest. I was really curious. I was looking it up where he went to college just to see if there's any way I could connect him to the Suns.
Yeah, he's also only 23 years old. So this would be another guy. Like, again, he's coming off, like Mike said.
That part I like, yeah.
Only 3 years of experience in the NBA and really only 1 year. This is why this is a gamble, but how much of a gamble could it really be as a minimum? Only 1 year of real experience as a consistent second option guy in the NBA. Before that, he was mostly just playing spot minutes.
Right. I like it. I like the idea of taking, if you can get a young player on a minimum contract, maybe they're not going to bring the sort of veteran savvy that some of these vets would bring, like even Yabusele, who only played 3 years in the NBA as well, but has tons of years playing professionally and playing in the Olympics. Or Taurean Prince, who's played on playoff teams over and over and over again. You're not going to have that. But the upside is higher in that if they hit, if the right coach gets them at the right time, Ty Jerome style, if you will, then you're going to get something well beyond what you're paying for. So that I like that from that perspective. But there's a possibility that he's not good too. It's just one of those things that is a little bit of a risk. So, do we even have to mention Batum again?
Oh,
technically he's a free agent, but he declined a $4.9 million option, so I anticipate he's going to sign for more than that. I don't think he's going to be, taking minimum contract money unless he desperately wants to live in Phoenix. But from everything I know about him, he wants to live in LA.
Would you still want Nick Batum? I mean, I guess he's still fine, right?
He's a competitor. He works hard. He's a good defender, and he makes every three, it feels like.
I mean, I guess I'll be honest. I just didn't really think about him, but you're right. He just sits in the corner, shoots threes. You just have to expect, this would be... I think if you're actually trying to play a fast-paced game, Nick Batum would struggle at this point in his career. I don't know,
because it's just three-point line. He's running
just
run
three-point lines at three-point line. Maybe. He's just not going to give you anything. He's not going to give you anything at the rim at this point.
No, he's
just
36, 37. Yeah, I don't even know how old he is at this point, but yeah.
And he's not really rebounding anymore either. But yeah, he can still defend. He can still shoot threes. He could do the bare-bone basics, and he does those really well. So, yeah, I guess I couldn't be mad at that either. Who would you prefer between him and Prince?
Prince.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It's just the upside. Batum at some point will be bad. I don't know, but Batum, the thing about Batum, though, is I think he's a valuable locker room presence as well, just as a professional, and has played so long and has played in such high leverage situations over the course of his career. But Taurean Prince has some of that too. Batum just has the French team experience as well, which, there's something to that. Who's your last forward that you have?
Last forward I have is Chris Boucher, who's played with Toronto for 8 years or something, and is an unrestricted free agent. Too.
Can I ask you? Let's just ask you this from what I thought about him, just to start.
Sure.
Is he kind of not a center though?
No, he's a power forward center. I looked into the minutes splits. He's a pure. Played 50% of his minutes at power forward, played 50% of his minutes at center.
I guess
I'm
wondering
this year.
Which one of those went better, and I have a feeling it was center.
It was actually they in terms of net rating, and look, it's one season sample size. I'd have to go into all the other seasons for you, but just last year they were basically equal. Whether he played a power forward at center, and again, 8 points better when Boucher was on the floor. Were the Raptors last year? That was 92nd percentile, so I definitely took note of that. The other thing I took note of, he at times in his career, I think, has played more center. You're totally right. But last year, he took a lot of threes. He's always been able to shoot threes, but last year was the first time that I think over 50% of his attempts were threes. He took 3.9 per game and made 36%. So he's only 34% from three for his career, but at 36%, and the other thing about Boucher, for those who, if you haven't watched a ton of him, like high flyer, finishes lobs, 70-something% at the rim, just a really high-level play finisher throughout his career. So if he's going to give you that, and that's just a given, and he's going to be a high-energy big who hits the offensive glass, and he's also shooting 35-36% from deep, which is all he has to do. He doesn't have to be like a sharpshooter, in my opinion. Then he could be really good. He could be really effective.
Sam, we got some breaking news.
No, are you serious?
It's not. Well, a new free agent has joined the free agency pool. Shams Charania, 8 minutes ago, breaking. DeAndre Ayton is finalizing a contract buyout.
What?
With the Portland Trailblazers to become a free agent. Follow-up tweet, sudden addition to the free agent market. This gives Ayton, a former number 1 overall pick who went to the NBA Finals with the Suns, the chance to receive a fresh opportunity as the Trailblazers build around their depth of young centers.
Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. It's happening. We said, what would the next contract look like? Is he even going to get one? Would you rather have Nick Richards or DeAndre Ayton?
I mean, DeAndre Ayton is a better player, and I still would probably rather have Nick Richards. I do think the Lakers might be interested, though, right?
Yeah, the Lakers.
Because the Lakers have an MLE, I believe.
You know what's so unfortunate is he's going to go play with Luka, and Luka's actually going to make him look good.
Luka will make him look good, and the Lakers fans who watch every game will be insanely frustrated by, December 15th?
100%.
Yeah.
But, he's better than Alex Len and Jackson Hayes by a long shot.
Truthfully, he should just retire.
Yeah,
he achieved his career goal, and honestly, there's never been a player that more wants to get paid for not working than DeAndre Ayton. This is seriously the best case for him. He gets a full year making over $30 million to not do anything.
He averaged 14 and 10 last year, 56% from the field. Yeah, 1.5 free throw attempts per game for Ayton last year. We used to get on him for getting to the line 3-4 times a game. 1.5 per game for the Blazers. It just doesn't try.
It's a really kind of sad end to what that contract was, and how much he pushed the Suns to give it to him, and his apparent lack of care after it happened. And how upset he was with it. And look, here it is. It ends with him being bought out in his final year, and a bunch of young guys are going to get the minutes over him. Guys who were not picked number 1 overall. We trace a lot of what the Suns are struggling right now with. To me, the original sin. You can talk about the Nurkic trade. You can talk about the Kevin Durant trade. You can talk about the Bradley Beal trade. The original sin was choosing the wrong guy at number 1 overall, and then losing all the leverage when they tried to trade him because nobody wanted him on their team after that. And look at him now; he'll be a free agent. So anyway,
he could go to the
on my free agent list is
he could go to the Pacers.
And I think the Suns should sign DeAndre Ayton for a minimum contract
for $2 million. Yeah. I mean, bring in Chris Paul campaign.
The Pacers
DeAndre
is interesting.
Ayton.
If Miles Turner's gone,
get the whole gang back together. Yeah, the Pacers could finally make the
Jay
mistake
Crowder's
that they
a free agent, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Get Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton, campaign, Chris Paul. Bring them all back.
Is Torrey Craig out
there?
Torrey
Craig's a free agent. He is. I looked it up.
Anyway, yeah. So Chris Boucher was my last guy, and I would like Chris Boucher more than DeAndre Ayton. I'll finish off by saying.
You know what's funny, by the way? No contract year Ayton.
Yeah.
The best case for a team was that you get Ayton in a contract year, and the Trailblazers said no. And you know what definitely happened? They tried to trade him. Nobody wanted him at that contract. There's no way they would buy him out without that. Crazy.
Did they add another center? Am I misremembering who they're...
No, they did. Who
did they add?
Chinese Jokic.
Oh, Hansen Yang. Okay, yeah, because they have Klingon and they still have Robert Williams and they have Yang. Okay. Got it. So that's why there's room.
free agency tomorrow. We're going to switch over to our friend Matt Alquiza to talk about the new Suns for the center. We're ending this segment with a DeAndre Ayton, the end of his contract, and then going on to talk about Mark Williams. You got anything else about free agency before we switch over to Matt?
Hopefully you guys have time to listen to this before anything crazy happens. But if something crazy happens in the next couple of days, you know the deal. We'll do our best.
And once free agency is all settled, yeah, we'll cover that too. Because if there's a buyout, if there's anything huge, if there's a big trade, we'll be ready. Otherwise, we'll let things settle and cover the full roster for the Suns at that point. Thanks, everyone. Switching over to Matt now. All right, joining us, a writer for Sports Illustrated and on the BuzzBeat podcast, talking about the Charlotte Hornets, Matt Alquiza. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing well. There is a very clear link between the two teams that we follow and cover, so I'm happy to join you guys and talk about it.
I think there's a case to be made that the Charlotte Hornets is the only team that the Phoenix Suns are allowed to make trades with. At this point, it's happened multiple times, and it seems like it's going to continue happening in the future. This last one, of course, the biggest trade of them all, netting you and your team 2 first-round picks, including the 29th pick in this previous draft, plus a future pick that has been swapped 8 times and will probably be towards the end of the draft, but still potentially a pretty good first-round pick for you in exchange for, of course, Mark Williams. We needed to talk to someone about Mark Williams that actually spent time watching all his games. As we were talking before we recorded, I admitted, didn't watch a ton of Mark Williams in the past. Of course, kept up with the whole Lakers trade fiasco that happened in the past and what's going on now. But when you think about, we'll just start from a very overhead conversation with this. When you think about Mark Williams and his time in Charlotte, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the injuries. Mark came in as a rookie from Duke, a lottery pick, a pretty highly touted center prospect who provided versatility on the defensive end. He was big enough to protect the rim. You'll come to find Mark has this great frame for a center. I think it was now the second longest standing reach in NBA Combine history. And as a rookie, he had really good lateral agility to play on the perimeter. There's a play in his rookie season where he blocked Trae Young on a game-winning shot. He hung with Trae on the perimeter and shut him down. But the injuries to his feet, his back, have really zapped the lateral agility, the movement that kind of defined Mark Williams' game on the defensive end. So unfortunately, his tenure was really mired by injuries. He missed more games than he played, and it's definitely a sad ending to his time in Charlotte, going from this pretty highly touted center prospect, the center of the future in the Queen City, to being shipped out now twice in 2 separate trades in 4 months.
Yeah, Matt, of course, a lot of eyeballs were on that first trade with the Lakers in particular because of the way in which it transpired, and then Mark Williams failing his physical. I don't remember actually if that was more due to the foot injury or the back injury or both, or if it was reported which one it was. But the fact that he did fail that physical, also just for you guys, I sympathize a little bit as Hornets fans having to cover any trade where the Los Angeles Lakers and their fans are involved. It makes the entire thing so much more annoying. So I'm sure that was great. But after that trade transpires, when you're talking about covering a guy who then has to come back and actually play a little bit more for you guys, how does that affect what's going on in the locker room? How does that affect your ability to sort of evaluate who Mark then is as a player, or who he was as a player for the Hornets, specifically last season?
Yeah, I have to give him credit, man. He handled it like a true professional. He played some of his better games of the year after that rescinded Lakers trade, and which made him come to the podium after games to talk to the media. And he just handled everything like a true professional. If you were totally unaware of the situation with the failed Lakers trade and you spent 10 minutes listening to Mark talk at a press conference following a game, you would have no idea that there was any sort of awkward interaction with the organization, any broken relationships. If you heard Charles Lee talk about him, he only had great things to say. So yeah, Mark handled it really well, and it was very impressive for folks covering the team to get to hear from Mark on a night in, night out basis from a guy that was, mature beyond his age, I would say. But yeah, it always felt like the writing was on the wall, right? Every game that he played towards the end of the season kind of felt like it was an audition for teams across the league to come get him. He was very clearly on the trading block because, again, they did trade him before it got rescinded. So, like I said, the writing was on the wall. Everyone who follows the Hornets, covers the Hornets, kind of knew that there was a trade coming at some point, whether it was before the draft, during the draft, which it ended up being, or at some point this summer. So yeah, it was always like this weird kind of like playing out the string. What are we doing here? Is Mark playing well enough for Charlotte to give him the massive extension he's due this summer? Is he just auditioning for another team, which is what it kind of felt like? Yeah, it was weird to watch it. But if you didn't know any better and just listened to Mark speak, you would have never known that anything had gone wrong.
I do want to talk about him on the court, but since the injuries, of course, is the first place to start any conversation with him, I do want to ask too, as someone who's covered his career and you have some level of understanding with his injuries, I'm sure there's like for example, when we first started this podcast, Devin Booker broke a bone in his hand, and we had a hand surgeon on to talk about that. It's like just like the way when you cover one team the way that we do and the way that you do, the minutia of which you end up covering every single detail of that team is just broken down and expanded out to like an extreme reality. So from what you understand about his injuries and what he has suffered in the past, it sounds like he's lost a little bit of what made him such a high draft pick in the past. And admittedly, like the difference between the Lakers haul that you got and the Suns one kind of shows that even his value, I think, was lowered a little bit from that. Do you think that the injuries are the type of thing that threaten his career in a way that he will be massively impacted now? He's in a contract year now, essentially, for the Phoenix Suns, right? So he's going to try to earn money now. This is his best chance to get life-changing, maybe generational wealth if he plays really, really well this year. Not that he hasn't made a lot since, but, it is what it is. Contract years are important. Do you think the injuries are something that are going to impact him long-term as far as his ability to play and stay on the court? Or do you think it's something that he can get over and maybe get to seasons where he's playing 60 games instead of 30?
I mean, I feel like he'll be able to get over them. He injured his foot at training camp last year. I'm pretty sure it was either day 1 or day 2 of training camp. He injured his foot, and it was billed as this short-term injury. He said he'd be fine for the regular season start at the end of October, and we didn't see him until December. So it was always hard for me personally to know how much his injuries were really affecting him versus how cautious the Hornets were being with an asset up until this past year. So he had a back injury that limited him his entire sophomore season post-December. It's hard to say, if he could have played or not. Back injuries obviously are always very detrimental to those big men. That's something that we've seen throughout NBA history, really, is back injuries limiting big men, right? So then he got that foot injury this past year. I'm curious if he could have come back earlier, or if at that point, Charlotte still saw him as this long-term asset that we need to protect. The goal was not to win in 2024-25, so why rush your starting center back, especially when you start the season poorly? So again, it's hard to say how much those injuries are going to affect him long-term. I will say, a back injury, a foot injury, those are not good omens for a guy who is 7 feet tall, right? I mean, my mind always goes to Bill Walton. His career ended very early because of those 2 injuries. Obviously, medicine has progressed greatly in the last 40 years, and Mark is getting the best treatment the world can offer day in and day out with an NBA franchise. So really hard to say. I do feel like there was some part of the Hornets that was like, hey, we need to hold him out because of these injuries and not risk really, really hurting him for the long haul. So I do think he will be able to play 50, 60 games in his career going forward. To put a bow on it, I don't think his injuries are going to limit him playing. I think it's going to limit him while he's playing, and we've already seen a vast change in his play style night in and night out. But I don't think that he is like injury prone per se. I think he will be able to play a good chunk of your games going forward. Whether or not he's effective in those games is to be found out, but I do think he will be on the floor.
We're certainly hoping that he can, average more than, say, 35 games a season, which
yes,
is
absolutely
the rate he was at in Charlotte. However, from the Suns' perspective, it is interesting, right? Because the report going around is that they actually had this trade in place before Kaman Malawach fell to them in the draft, because there was this belief that Malawach might go, 7-8 and not drop to 10. And yet, it makes a lot of sense to still take Malawach, even if you have a guy like Mark Williams coming in just as an insurance policy, because, it's just the way we're talking about him, right? No one... 70 games, 65 games, 65 being the benchmark now if you want to win any sort of award at the end of the season, right? Even that is not really the expectation that I think anyone is setting for Mark here. We're going below that. So that says quite a bit. Speaking to who he is as a player on the court, I would identify like his obvious strong suit still as just being an elite finisher, elite rebounder. Defense a little bit more iffy, and I'd, be curious to hear your thoughts on that. But, sort of, even if his mobility has been a little bit affected by these injuries, can you just speak to what are the most elite skills that Mark Williams still has on the court at this point?
Yeah, it's finishing for sure. He's, like I said earlier, he's got that really long standing reach, which gives him this crazy catch radius to throw down lobs and to bring in some errant passes, which if you've watched any Charlotte Hornets guard not named LaMelo Ball in Mark Williams' career, he's getting a lot of errant passes. So he's become pretty adept at, catching ones that are outside of his catch frame. Kind of like Odell Beckham is what I think of with him. So yeah, good finisher, plays through contact well on offense. He had a pretty crazy and one rate. He finished a lot of shots that he was fouled on this past year, which is pretty impressive for a guy, any guy really. At his size, you like to see him play through contact. And then he's great as an offensive rebounder. He's pretty relentless going for offensive rebounds. And again, that super long wingspan, the sturdy frame, makes him like a bear to deal with on the offensive glass. And that's something that Charles Lee really valued in Charlotte. He valued it in Boston and Milwaukee, his previous two stops. He really does value guys that can pull down offensive rebounds, and Mark was fantastic at it this past year. The defensive side of the floor is where he struggles. He's kind of a man without a position on defense. He struggles guarding the rim because he does not have great timing to block shots. There's a game towards the end of the year, or towards the middle of the year, Charlotte was playing a close game against the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic pump faked Mark Williams. He went for the block. Jokic ended up missing the shot that he took after Mark bit on the pump fake. But because Mark jumped so late for that block, Jokic was able to grab an offensive rebound and hit a game-winning bucket with 45 seconds left. So he just doesn't have great timing on the interior when it comes to blocking shots. You would think that he's a great shot blocker, again, because he is so big, because his arms are so long, but he hasn't quite figured it out yet how to time the apex of a shot perfectly, which then leaves him out of position for offensive rebounds, leaves him out of the play running the floor in transition. And then, like I said earlier, he doesn't have the lateral quickness that he used to. So he does struggle to switch on the perimeter. In his rookie season, you could feel fairly comfortable switching Mark onto a wing, onto a guard. It's just that he would swallow them up by moving laterally and using his gigantic pterodactyl arms to guard a defender. But now, as he's injured his back, as he's injured his feet, he's a little bit slower than he once was. So I feel like the biggest thing for Mark and the next evolution in his career is to really just go all in on one or the other, either becoming an elite switch big that can play on the perimeter, or really figure out the rim protection piece of playing center. And that's the way I think he needs to go, is to bulk up a little bit and just start playing a lot more drop coverage and just really become great at protecting the rim, instead of kind of being this jack of all trades, master of none that is a mediocre perimeter defender and a fine rim protector. Become great at one or the other, and know that, and maximize your skill set on at least one of those two areas of defense at the center position.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to think about his career as a whole, because you're talking about not quite finding the timing on blocks, but it's also important to remember that his entire career so far has been just over 100 games.
Right.
For a player going into their fourth season, you expect that it's closer to double that or more, even potentially. And the fact that he has not quite found that timing is probably, at the very least, partially related to the lack of reps, just getting out there and being able to do it time and time again. And I did notice with his rim protection numbers, like, we traded Nurkic to your team, so like I'm keeping track of the stats overall, and I see Nurkic's rim protection numbers, who struggled mightily here in Phoenix, are better than Mark Williams in his time there, which is just one of those things that stands out to me because of the standing reach. And it sounds like what you anticipate is those numbers reflect his poor timings to block shots. Does he struggle in space on, I guess, multiple part question here. Does he struggle in space on pick and rolls in general if he is playing the drop coverage, and how is he as a post defender overall?
Yeah, as a post defender, not great. Jonas Valanciunas came through Charlotte a couple times this year with Washington, and it felt like the Wizards made a pretty concerted effort early in the game to establish Valanciunas, like a lot of teams do with their big man. He just backed Mark into the basket and finished over him. He definitely does struggle with some of those like bigger back to the basket centers. I think Nikola Vucic scored like 43 points against Charlotte earlier this year when Mark was playing. I said Valanciunas, he struggled against Jokic. So not a great post defender when the like bigger bodied back to the basket guys come through. And then struggling in space, you just don't want him to switch onto a guard. I think if he's playing like not like a deep drop coverage, we've talked a lot about this in Charlotte recently after they drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner, and I don't know how much college scouting you guys do, but Creighton plays the deep drop coverage that Ryan Kalkbrenner has become really great at. Is just like, hey, I'm not going to let you get to the rim. You can take a 15-foot pull up all day long.
Best shot blocker in college, I believe, right? He had those crazy shot blocking numbers.
Yeah, and Kalkbrenner's standing reach probably isn't like too far off from where Mark Williams was, maybe like 2 or 3 inches less, but yeah, really good guy you got there.
4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, which is a pretty sick stat for a guy that played 5 years in college. Mark, I think he's fine in space on drop coverage. Again, it's just like the timing issues with blocking shots, like the struggling with the strength to guard big men. It's hard to like point to him being like good or bad at it, because I just think the overall defensive package leaves a lot to be desired, because again, he's just like stuck in the middle on so many things. It's just like average to below average at a lot. And I want to see him put some strength on so he can bang with those big guys, so to be a true like drop coverage big man, instead of like trying to do both and not really excelling at either. So I would say he's fine in space on the pick and roll, but not what you expected him to be when you drafted him out of Duke. Not what you expect Malawach to end up being, right? I mean, that's right. The vision for Malawach is like the fully actualized Mark Williams, which we haven't seen due to the injuries that he suffered. So it's I think it's great that Phoenix traded for Mark and then drafted Malawach, or whatever order those actually
within
happened
seconds of each other.
Within seconds of each other, because again, the idea of Mark Williams really matches the idea of Malawach, and I don't know if there are many people I would want to mentor Malawach above Mark Williams, because on his best day, that's what you want Malawach to be. And like I said earlier, Mark does seem like a really high character, good locker room guy that I think Phoenix will really be valuable to Phoenix in that aspect of building a culture and building a basketball team.
That's something you can tell. I mean, they've said they've been interested in stressing Phoenix, that is, the Phoenix Brass, and yeah, it's just good to hear that he's a coachable kid, basically, and intelligent as well. One thing that kind of pops out to me in a low-key way on his statistical profile that I think is really interesting and had to get your take on, the free throw percentage improvement from year to year. So he came out, started as a 69% free throw shooter his rookie year, then went to 72%. This past year at 80% on almost 4 attempts per game, which for a guy of his size and frame is like really pretty good. I know Mark has always had pretty good touch, his finishing around the basket, but I am curious, with a free throw percentage like that, has there ever been a discussion among you guys of, should we like let this guy try an open 3 or 2 a game and just see if it could be like a point of development for him, see if it's something that in the future could be in his bag?
For context too, for the listeners, I believe he's shot 4 in his whole career.
Yeah,
So,
he doesn't shoot threes right
Yeah.
now. But has it ever been a conversation, Matt, of like, why don't we let Mark Williams try a couple of threes and see if he could become a trailing guy or allow us to play 5 out sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely a conversation. That's been kind of you said the word low-key earlier. It's kind of like a low-key development point that people have stressed around Charlotte for a long time. I think even the coaching staff has talked about it in the past year, that they want to see Mark extend his range out to the three-point line. So yes, that is something that has been talked about for a while. Something that was kind of like, again, like Malawach-esque. The idea of Malawach shooting three-pointers is like an idea at this point. And if he ever gets there, if he ever is able to shoot 35% on pretty decent volume, he just becomes a completely different prospect, a completely different level of basketball player. That's again, similarly, there has been a lot of conversation around Mark in the realm of him extending his range out to the 3-point line.
Yeah, it's something that every center that's young, there's going to be a coach that says, we think he can shoot threes.
Right.
At some point, everyone's going to try it, but I think you should, when they shoot well from the free throw line, you should test that, send it out to the 3-point line and see what he could do. One thing I noticed, I watched a random game from him against the Jazz this last year. I watched the whole thing earlier on League Pass. Well, every minute he was on the floor, I should say. And this is one of his better games. I think he had 30 points in this game. And one of the things that really stood out to me, and I think this is part of the conversation too when it comes to him shooting threes, is just how hard he runs the floor in transition. Now, Charlotte, of course, plays probably the fastest of any team in the NBA, or close to it as far as pace goes. When you have LaMelo Ball, he's going to get it up the floor pretty quickly, whether it's in his hands or just passing it down the floor. And I was really impressed watching that whole game that he...
Did LaMelo play in that game? Sorry to interject.
I think he did.
Yeah,
yes.
he
did. He missed a lot of time too this season.
Yeah.
Right?
So that was a game they played together, and I looked for that. And I was just really impressed with him just sprinting down the court regularly. And I think for a lot of these guys, especially big men, when you play on a team like that, if they're not running down, if they're not sprinting down, it messes up the entire offense, really, and you need a guy to do that regularly. Is that something he did on a consistent basis? Is that something the Suns can expect of him? Somebody who's just going to be out there working pretty hard, even when it's not necessarily going to be rewarded?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think that speaks to Mark's character. Although he does have limitations to his game, physically, mentally, whatever, it's never because of lack of effort. He can't do something because he can't do something. He can't do something because he's not trying to do it, if that makes sense. Like, he's always going to give you like 100% effort when he's on the floor. And like I said earlier, he's a good finisher. His catch radius is crazy, so he can throw down lobs. He is a pretty decent threat in transition if he's able to get there. Charlotte, like I said earlier as well, does really value offensive rebounding. So I feel like we didn't get to see him get out in transition a ton because he was crashing the offensive glass a lot and he spent so much of his time in the paint on offense. But yeah, if that is asked of him in his role in Phoenix, I have no doubt that he will give you 110% on every fast break that he is asked to be a part of.
Mike, I don't know if you have anything else.
I think we got to talk about Yusuf Nurkic at least, because
that was going to be my last question, is how much of a relief is it, Matt, to be not only off of Yusuf Nurkic, but you actually brought in a guy who could be a real contributor.
I love Colin Sexton. Can I just say
crazy.
That?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even care if it's rational at this point anymore. Like, I just have loved Colin Sexton since he was in college, and I'm excited to see him in a new opportunity. I do kind of feel like Ace Bailey was like, I'm taking all the shots, get rid of Colin Sexton. So they did. Nurkic, I don't know, he took some shots from KD, so he might take some shots from Ace Bailey as well. But yes, are you excited about this trade?
Before I answer that question, me and some friends were laughing that there's the Matt Ishbia quote that he says, 26 teams would trade their roster for hours right now. And
Zach Lowe's favorite. Yeah,
Jeff Peterson and the Hornets took that literally, apparently, because they've just been trading players back and forth for the past couple of months. Yes, relieved to get off Nurkic. I didn't hate his time in Charlotte, I think, as much as you guys in Phoenix did. Just because
he was pretty good there, actually. Yeah,
there was the drama with Phoenix of him wanting to start and wanting to get the minutes and the shots on a team that's trying to contend, and I think that built up some probably like well garnered ill will from the fan base and people that cover the team that you're paying this guy $20 million to just sit on the bench because he's, not wanting to play. But yeah, I think Nurkic is a fine, offensive hub as a center. Give him the ball at the free throw line, let him cook with some passes. He stretched his range out to the 3-point line, which that was arguably the most frustrating thing about the Yusuf Nurkic experience in Charlotte, was him missing his first 18 threes with the team or something, some crazy number like that. But yeah,
he's the perfect example of a guy who, wants to be a shooter and just is not a very good shooter. Never has been. Probably never will be.
Yeah, not a stretch big, but he sure thinks that he's a stretch big. I can
he
confirm
really
that.
Wants to be.
He does think that he can stretch the floor. But yeah, love the trade. I'm a huge Colin Sexton fan as well. That game where he played 3-on-5 against Minnesota and scored 40 points is like an all-time great college basketball game, college basketball
100%.
highlight. So yeah, huge fan of him. I think he's kind of the type of guard that the Hornets need off their bench. And this isn't a Hornets podcast, so I won't get into the minutia, but Charlotte needs guys that can pressure the rim real bad outside of LaMelo Ball, and Sexton can do that in spades. Mm-hmm. So excited for the just a different pitch that he's going to bring off the bench in Charlotte.
It's a funny thing when a trade happens, especially if it's a Blue Wire podcast. We tend to, we'll come on your pod, you'll come on our pod, and in this case, the guy we traded to you played more minutes last season with the Charlotte Hornets in Vasa Micic than he did with the Phoenix Suns. He played 10 minutes total on the Phoenix Suns, so there's no reason for us to explain to you who Micic is on your podcast, and it's just kind of a funny situation like that. This is not something that happens very often. But Matt Alquiza, you write for the Sports Illustrated about the Hornets. Buzzbeat Pod is your podcast. Is there anything else that you would like to plug?
No, that's it. If you are interested in seeing more stuff about the Hornets, please follow. You can follow me on Twitter, at MLKiza8. And like you said, Sports Illustrated, Hornets on SI, and the Buzzbeat Podcast is where you can find my work.
Thank you so much for joining us, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.